From a simple leather sandal to today's, high-tech super shoes, the gear that athletes use has been on this relentless, centuries-long quest for peak performance. So today, we're going to trace that incredible evolution to really understand how we got here and maybe get a glimpse of where we're going next. So let's just jump right in with a question. What could a Roman gladiator's sandal, we're talking ancient history here, possibly have in common with the shoes worn by a basketball superstar today? I mean, on the surface, they seem like they're from different planets, right? Well, believe it or not, they're both trying to answer the exact same fundamental question. How can our gear help us push the absolute limits of what's humanly possible? And that right there, that's the core idea that has driven every single innovation we're about to talk about. Okay, so to really get where we're going, we've got to look at where it all started. Let's dive into the ancient blueprint for athletic gear. For literally thousands of years, things barely changed. Back in ancient Greece, athletes were often just competing barefoot. A little later, the Romans developed these really sturdy leather boots for their gladiators. But for the most part, innovation was kind of stuck, limited by the natural materials they had on hand, things like leather and wood. And you gotta remember, the gear back then was all about solving the most basic problems. It had to protect you from getting hurt, it needed to give you some grip, it had to be tough enough to survive combat or competition, and it had to give you some basic support. Everything was driven by pure, simple necessity. But that slow, steady pace, it wasn't gonna last. A huge collision was coming. That moment when science finally met sport and it produced the first true game changers in athletic equipment. The first massive breakthrough was something called vulcanized rubber. This process, which was invented back in the mid-1800s, took sticky, natural rubber and turned it into this durable, elastic, waterproof material. And suddenly, shoe soles could offer incredible cushioning and absorb shock. I mean, talk about a massive leap forward from a hard piece of leather. Okay, so rubber soles were great, but they didn't fix everything. Just think about track athletes. They were still slipping on those old cinder and grass tracks, losing precious energy just trying to get a solid grip. And the solution was so simple, but absolutely brilliant. The spike shoe. All they did was add a few metal spikes to the bottom, and bam, athletes got this incredible, unparalleled traction. It was such a small change, but it meant they could generate so much more force with every single step. And the results? Whoa. They were immediate and just undeniable. The spiked shoe wasn't some tiny little improvement. It directly led to world records being completely shattered across the board. It literally kicked off a whole new era of speed in sports. And that really set the stage for the modern era, where innovation didn't just speed up, it totally exploded. We entered this new phase that's all driven by data, by high-tech design, and this scientific obsession with dominance. I mean, just look at the difference here. We went from wood to ultralight carbon fiber, from leather to these incredible high-performance synthetics. We've replaced basic rubber with advanced foams and gels. Even simple cotton has been replaced by these smart, moisture-wicking fabrics. The technology has just skyrocketed in every single area. So what's the secret sauce behind all this? It's a field called biomechanics. To put it simply, it's the science of how we move. By studying all the tiny forces acting on the body, designers can finally, for the first time, engineer equipment that actually works with an athlete's natural motion, instead of fighting against it. So how does this actually work? Well, it's pretty cool. They use things like high-speed cameras and force plates to map out exactly how, say, a runner's foot lands and rolls inward. That data shows them the exact stress points. And that discovery leads directly to innovations like putting firmer foam right on the inside of a shoe's midsole. It actually guides the foot into a more efficient, safer motion. It's all driven by the data. And this is where things get really interesting, right? Because all this tech, it's not just changing how we play the game, it's changing how we think about sports itself. It's forcing us to ask some really, really big questions. So now we have to ask ourselves some pretty tough questions, like where's the line between gear that enhances your ability versus gear that starts to substitute for it? And with this stuff getting so expensive, how do we keep sports fair for everyone? And here's the big one. Are we really surpassing human limits? Or is all this technology just revealing the potential that was there all along? And there's this one idea that I think frames it perfectly, that maybe the goal of all this innovation isn't to create superhumans, but to allow athletes to explore and extend the very edges of what the human body is capable of. It's really about unlocking potential. So I want to leave you with this one final thought to chew on.
As our gear gets smarter and smarter, we're talking real-time feedback, adaptive materials, even biointegration. Where exactly does the athlete end and the equipment begin?